to everyone. We are now going live on YouTube. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Kristen Donhoffner and I am the Measure 110 Strategy and Engagement Manager with OHA, and I will be assisting with facilitating today's meeting. Excuse me. The Oversight and Accountability Council welcomes and encourages community input. Members of the public are invited to submit public comments or get on our interesting parties email list by emailing oha.measure110@dhsoha.state.or.us. That email address and more information about the council can be found on the Measure 110 OAC website. OAC members have asked that OHA and other staff who are present in the meeting space introduce themselves in the chat. Please share your role with the agency if you are a subject matter expert, your area of expertise. I will now turn it over to Blue.
Hi, thank you, Kristen. So we've got a couple things on our agenda today for this special meeting. We will have a presentation on access to care reporting and a conversation with the Secretary of State audit, as well as a communications update, and just a heads up to the council that we have Ian Green scheduled to come between 2:30 and 3. So if our first presentation goes a little short, we can take a break. And if it starts to go long, we may have to stop that conversation in order to give that full half hour to the Secretary of State. And with that, I will pass it over to Sydney to take attendance.
Thank you. I just want to note that we don't have any votes scheduled today, so attendance will just be called one time, and we shouldn't have to keep up with notes, but we just want to have it on the record. So when I say your name, if you could please say here. Amy?
Here.
Hi, Amy. Blue?
Here.
Hi, Blue. Carlos has not joined yet. Caroline, I know will join late. Dharma?
Here.
Hi, Dharma. Henry?
Here.
Hi, Henry. Hubert? Don't see Hubert yet. Jackie?
Here.
Hi, Jackie. Keisha?
Here.
Hi, Keisha. Leticia, I know will be joining late also. I don't see her yet. Melinda?
Here.
Hi, Melinda.
Hello.
Morgan?
Here.
Hi, Morgan. Nicole? Do not see Nicole yet. Onisha?
Here.
Hi, Onisha. Ron?
Here.
Hi, Ron. Sabrina, I know, said she probably wouldn't be able to make it. Zeb, I don't see Zeb. Tori, don't see Tori. And Bessie, I don't see Bessie either. We got 10 now though. Back to you, Blue.
Thank you, Sydney. Okay, so up first, Kristen is going to be talking about access to care reporting. So I will turn it over to Kristen.
Thank you, Blue. And we have a few slides for you all. I do want to acknowledge Kathy Cervantes on our team, who really did a very deep dive into all of this data and created these slides, along with several other members of our team. So a big thanks to all of them. So today I'm going to highlight some access to care data and information that we got from that bridge program. Next slide. As a reminder, the access to care grants were bridge funding to organizations to build infrastructure and maintain access to service prior to the availability of the Behavioral Health Resource Network, or BURN, funding. Access to Care provided $31.9 million in direct grants to 66 grantees, and really helped develop new substance use treatment infrastructure across Oregon. I do want to note that the total amount spent on access to care grants was 39.9 million. That was dispersed for services such as harm reduction and rental assistance, but the 31.9 went directly to these 66 grantees. So that is what we are going to be discussing today. In this pie chart, you can see the breakdown of kind of the geographic distribution of funds. About 18 million went to urban providers, almost 2.5 million went to frontier providers, 8.5 million went to rural providers, and 2.8 went to tribal grantees. We know that access to care created over 200 new jobs and staff training for roles such as peer support specialists, certified recovery mentors, CADCs, doulas, and many more. And I think I want to call this out because these are traditionally really important workforce roles that haven't always traditionally been funded or had a revenue for reimbursement before. So this is really expanding a workforce that is critical and was kind of previously very underfunded. The grants also went to create homes, shelters, recovery centers, community and counseling rooms, and fund harm reduction services. Next slide. I also want to acknowledge kind of the journey that we've been on through the Access to Care program and highlight some of the challenges that we faced here at OHA. There were, I think, a lot of limited dedicated staff to this program. I know I personally came on after the Access to Care program was up and running, so had to quickly get up to speed. There was also a really quick turnaround to get funding out the door. And sometimes when you do things fast, you don't always pay attention to all of the details that need to be addressed. So just acknowledging and naming that these funds were really expedited to community so that they could be turned around and help people in need. And this also all occurred, brand new program as the agency was acknowledging or working on COVID response, wildfire disaster response, and managing working in a very new work paradigm. So all of this kind of led to us really having to kind of recreate or create a new program from scratch under very, very interesting and unprecedented conditions. Next slide. The good news is from all of the funded providers, we've received about 80% of their quarterly expenditure reports back. And this pie chart only reflects the 31.9 million that has been reported to OHA. We're currently working with all of the Access to Care grantees to collect full expenditure reports across all of the grant agreements and various amendments and extensions. But from this breakdown, you can see that about 42% of the overall funding went to hire personnel who could provide direct services. Another 20% of the funding went directly to services and supplies. Approximately 2% went to staff training. 8% is kind of an other category of expenses that didn't cleanly fall into any of these buckets. 2% was spent on administrative costs, and 26% was spent on capital outlays, which could include buildings, vehicles, kind of infrastructure. So kind of combined personnel, as you can see from this personnel and capital outlay, the gray and orange, dark orange slices of this pie account for a big chunk of this spending. And I think that's kind of what we anticipated with the program that was really funding the development of infrastructure for the burns that were to come. Next slide. The Access to Care grantees also reported on the number of persons served. They reported serving a little over 42,000 people for the whole lifetime of the grant. And these numbers come from the narrative reports that were submitted by Access to Care grantees in November of 2022. I believe the council heard an update in March 2022 that the program had served 16,000. So between March 2022 and November 2022, you can really see that there was a pretty significant increase in the number of persons served. Most of the expenditure reports that came from Access to Care were based on quarterly information and not cumulative counts. So the narrative reports didn't have a clean template to follow. And I think that's kind of why it took us a little bit of time to just parse through all of these numbers. But breaking down the number of persons served in the categories, you can see that the majority of folks were served through basic assistance such as vouchers, cell phones, counts that kind of weren't categorized. Like I mentioned, we didn't have a easy template that broke down kind of the services as we do with the burns. And we have another kind of pretty big chunk that were engaged in peer support services, followed by substance use treatment, housing assistance, screening, and supported employment. So I think going forward, when we start talking about the Measure 110 service categories, those 7 services will be a little cleaner than this, but you can kind of start to see a breakdown of people and where they really needed help and sought out help. From these narrative paragraphs, we also know that our Access to Care partners funded over 50,000 syringe exchanges and kits, over 4,000 sharps containers for syringe disposal, over 20,000 units of naloxone, for a total of about 178,000 harm reduction services. And I think that that's kind of going to be, these are services, not people served. So this number is definitely higher than the 40,000, kind of recognizing that some people may come back multiple times for a service. Next slide. And just briefly, I want to end on a snapshot of what a few of the Access to Care providers have said about the program, highlighting some of the qualitative success stories that we've heard. One provider said that a client used all of his Narcan to reverse an overdose, and that they witnessed on another person while on their way to an appointment. And the clinic gave him a new supply, and just an example of the harm reduction that is helping. Someone is maybe alive today, thanks to that client. Another Access to Care provider said that they were accepting people right where they were at and using that as a starting point, instead of having a client have to start through a convoluted referral process, just picking up kind of where they are in the community. A sobering center in Southern Oregon reported that they had eased the local emergency room burden and served as a stepping stone to residential treatment and detox services for several of the clients that they saw. And another Access to Care provider reported creating a program to assist women of color with income who needed stabilization within the short term 12 to 18 months. So some really kind of early success stories with this funding, and we're hoping that that will really translate into strong success with Measure 110 funds. So I think with that, we can take these slides down, and I'm happy to answer any questions about all of that. That's blue.
Will there be any more detailed data coming out at a later date, or is this the level of detail that we will be getting, and that's sort of it.
So as I mentioned, we do not have full reports back from all providers. As we continue to get the full reports back from everyone, I believe we're hoping to publish additional data kind of as a final look back on the program. Yes, Ron.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Thank you for that great report. It was really wonderful to see those numbers. I'm really happy that this is being published for the council and the data has been collected. It's truly wonderful. I just had a follow-up about the harm reduction services. There were, I don't know if you could put the slide back up, but I was just wondering what other services were included in harm reduction. There seemed to be like, it says other, I think, and I was just wondering what the other services were.
Yeah, so I think if we could bring that slide back up, Ron was talking about slide 5. So this other category, is that what you were asking about, Ron?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So the other category included things like basic assistance, vouchers, either for transportation or food, cell phones, kind of a lot of the other wraparound services that I think will be captured going forward under peer services. But there wasn't a category to kind of put them in, since we asked providers for more open-ended narratives of what they were doing with these funds. We kind of had to put all of these really, really good assistance categories into kind of a bigger other bucket. And I think we'd be happy to try to break those down further if you'd like.
Right. So so just in terms of, thank you for that. Just in terms of harm reduction, I mean, like harm reduction doesn't have like individuals served, right? It just has the type of service provided under harm reduction.
Correct. And that will be different going forward with the burns, as harm reduction providers kind of are a service category, and we will see number of people served through harm reduction services a lot more clearly in those future reports.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Blue?
Yeah. So I just had a question. One of the early slides had I think it said 31.8 million and there was an asterisk and then it said 39.8 million, and I'm just wondering what that, I think it's $8 million difference was between those two numbers. That wasn't clear to me. I don't know if the slide would help anyone else, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the 31.9 was what was given to providers through the grants. And so when we're reporting on that 42,000 number, those 42,000 people were served by the 66 providers who received 31.9 million. However, the full access to care program had that additional 8 million for a total of 39.9 million. And that 8 million was used amongst other things for harm reduction programs and some housing programs at OHA. So they weren't through kind of the 66 grant agreements that we saw. And I think we'd be happy to provide more information.
So those are the amended contracts.
Yeah. And I think we'd be happy to provide more information kind of on that breakdown at a later time.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions
I just
about?
want to thank you again for this information. This is exactly what I was hoping we would see today. It's absolutely wonderful news, and I'm really looking forward to this information getting out.
Margie?
Margie Stanton, is that you with your hand up? Aren't you proud of me? That I put my hand up. I want to also compliment the team on the work that they did to pull this together. Because if you all will recall that back when we were doing these access to care grants, we were more focused on getting the money out the door and letting the providers tell us how they were going to spend the money. And we were being open to the creativity of community in addressing the needs. And so we didn't provide a formula or a template that says report back to us on these categories because we really at that time didn't know all of the ways that the communities would spend the money. We just wanted them to stay within the ramifications as far as how it was defined as to areas this money could be used in. So needless to say, nor are there any penalties if you did not report back to us in reference to that. We have encouraged them, and now we've gone back with some additional communication, creating a template, so this information will come in more refined as we do our reporting on other things, and we're working with those providers that have not submitted anything at this point to add to that, and it'll be easier for us to interpret. But when we talk about what we received from those providers, think about it in paragraph form, that they wrote letters or reports to us and not necessarily outlining it that this much went for here and this much went for there. We had a lot of reading to do, and we've just been able to dissect all of that and to get it into some format that it would make sense that we could publish. So Kathy is on this call, and the team that worked with Kathy to do that, I just want to acknowledge them because it was a lot of work that most of our numbers people refused to work with because it was too complicated and wanted something else. So we're quite pleased, and I think it'll get easier as we go. So thank you all.
Do you have any other questions regarding that access to care report or data? Okay, so if not, it's my understanding that we will be taking a break until maybe, I don't know if we want to come back maybe at 2:25 just to give folks a couple minutes to trickle in so that we're ready to go for the 2:30 conversation around this Secretary of State audit. Unless anything has changed. Is that the plan, Kristen?
I believe that is the plan. Ian Green from the Secretary of State's office should be here at 2:30.
All right, then let's try and come back around 2:25 if that works for everybody.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back. It is 2:30, and I know we have Casey with the Secretary of State's office, and it looks like Ian is logging in right now. So give it just one more minute. Oh, looks like we might have both of them. Yes, Ron.
Yeah, I was hoping to have a statement I wanted to read regarding the audit, if I could.
This is your meeting. I just want to make sure that we have Ian and Casey here with us. Ian, thank
Good
you.
afternoon, everyone.
Welcome. Just a reminder, this is still a public meeting. We are still on YouTube and it is your meeting. So I will turn it over to Blue.
Ron, is your statement something that you would like Ian to be present
Yes.
to hear? Okay, so
Just regarding the audit, I wanted to go ahead and do it, as the presentation was getting started before the presentation.
all right, go ahead, Ron, and then when you're done, we can turn it over to Ian.
Yeah, it'll only take a couple minutes. I just was thinking about this and thought I'd put my thoughts on paper. So members of the council, I just wanted to get a few things on the record about the Secretary of State's audit of the Oregon Health Authority's oversight of Measure 110. The Oregon voters, taxpayers, and elected officials and recovery service providers need to be confident in the oversight, accountability, and metrics of the Measure 110 grants. The audit of the Health Authority's action during the first phase of grant making raised many questions of some of the issues that advocates and members of the community have raised for more than a year. I just want to get on the record that the issues raised in the audit, some of them are the same that have been raised by advocates. And in that sense, the audit kind of reflects some of the concerns that have been echoed by advocates and folks in the community. At the same time, we need to acknowledge that the Secretary of State's audit created an incorrect impression about the addiction recovery providers who received Measure 110 funding by stating that there was no data available about how the money was spent. It unfairly threw into question the professionalism of programs that are run by and serve Black, Native American, Latinx, and other people of color organizations that have been most impacted by criminalization and the war on drugs. The audit was on OHA's distribution and accounting of the first $33 million in emergency grant funding to providers to help them keep the lights on and keep current programs from losing capacity or shutting down altogether. The audit did not capture the reporting that providers actually submitted, and I'm concerned that this left an incorrect impression that providers receive money with no oversight. We know that is not the case. We know that the Oregon Health Authority did an outcomes report that showed over 42,109 people received services from the Access to Care grant. It will take a concerted effort by the Oregon Health Authority to make improvements outlined in the audit, but thankfully they now have a roadmap. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ron. You're always really good at articulating a lot of the things that I think and can't really get out. So thank you so much for that. And I'm hoping we'll have some time after this presentation as well if other council members would like to weigh in or discuss this further. And so with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Ian for you to discuss the audit.
Thank you, Blue. And before we begin, I just want to highlight that as an agency, the Secretary of State values and centers our work on equity. And to do equity means to listen. And I've been asked by Secretary Fagan to listen today to the testimony, especially from providers of color. We know that some of the technical language in our audit caused some confusion in the public, and providers are bearing the brunt of that. For any confusion, I apologize. Our intent has been and will continue to be improving Measure 110. That is our goal with our recommendations, and I'll be here actively listening to those concerns and look forward to meeting with providers and the secretary to listen more. In terms of the presentation, I'd be happy to open up to questions. I can go through an overview of the audit. I really want to make sure I provide the most value to the committee, or to the council rather.
So I think I wasn't clear on whether or not there was anything to sort of present, or if it was just, is this whole time just for an open discussion with questions?
That wasn't entirely clear to me. I've got a slide deck. If I have rights, I could pop those up and present them. It's just a couple slides that we've highlighted to legislative members. I'd be happy to go through that, or I'd be happy to just take questions or
Yeah,
walk
one of the
through other
things that-
aspects of the report.
Yeah, one thing I would hope that you would address is the difference between how the fact, or address how it is that the audit did not capture what was reported.
Absolutely, Ron. Let me start there. So last year when we started this effort, we had asked for some information from OHA on the access to care and the grant monitoring that was taking place. And we were told by multiple OHA staff that there was not much work going on there. One of the staff actually left OHA during that time period. And I think what happened is when we drafted our report and provided it to OHA for their feedback, that 2 sentences of the report wasn't flagged as an issue, that there was ongoing work that had changed since we had last inquired about it. So from our understanding, there was little to no work being done around that. Clearly, since then, some additional work has been made, and we'd be happy to look at the reporting. As I think the OAC knows, this is the first of 3 audits. We've got 2 other audits coming down the pipeline, so we can certainly, correct the record as more information comes available. And from our perspective, we want that data collected. We want it to be used for decision making. So we're really pleased that that effort actually was done in the end.
So if you could go ahead, maybe just go through your slides really quickly. They may be able to answer some questions or provide some clarity, and then hopefully we'll still have some time for council members to have an open discussion.
Sounds good. Give me just 1 minute to pull up a slide deck.
Hey, while Ian is doing that, I just wanted to comment too, that remember that the audit is time and place. So on the day that that question was asked, and that individual, we may not have added up or had an opportunity to actually have read the reports or at that moment, or that individual may not have been aware of it. But I am glad to say that that work is being done. It has been done up to as far as what we received today. And we're happy to share that with others as needed.
Thanks, Margie. That's an excellent point. This first audit was really designed to be a real-time audit. We completed most of our field work through August, September of last year. So it was really capturing in our report the information that was available to us at that time. My understanding from a conversation earlier this week that some of those access to care grants didn't actually close till around the November time period. So to some extent, some of that work couldn't have been completed until recently. So you have to consider the timing as well. Did my slides show up okay? Perfect.
Yes.
All right. So we released this audit January 18th. And if we look at the audit report, it's 40 pages, but in terms of the findings, there's 3 core areas that we looked at. The first being some improvements that were needed to grant management and data collection. We have a lot of concerns around data collection being sufficient, more than just access to care, but ongoing with the burn funding, that in order to effectively assess whether Measure 110 is working, we need to have good, solid data behind that. So how that actually gets implemented, that's ultimately within OHA and the OAC's control to decide that. But we want to really highlight the point that we believe more effort is needed here, and it will really help us make those determinations down the road on what the impacts of the Measure 110 is doing and how it's helping our communities. The second core finding area was some governance and process improvements. I think the OAC is aware of many of these. We've heard these from multiple members of the OAC and other stakeholders out there, and that's relating to clarifying some of those roles and responsibilities between the OHA and the OAC. We also felt like OHA needed to provide better support to ensure Measure 110 implementation is successful. As you're aware, during the initial rollout, there was not enough resources dedicated by OHA towards the implementation. That led to some stumbles. And then the last point here is just streamlining the grant process. The grant process had too many elements, too many reviews. It took too long to get through. And as we develop an ongoing process, it will benefit both the OAC and the OHA in terms of the administrative ease of implementing that, but it'll also benefit the providers. They won't have to complete a novel to get access to these grants if the process is streamlined more. And then the third area relates to some opportunities we saw with expanding collaboration. There's some great opportunities with Department of Corrections. I've got a slide that'll go into more detail on that, but also housing and community services, the Interagency Council on Homelessness, and opportunities to coordinate efforts with the opioid settlement funds as well. In terms of our recommendations, we split them into two buckets. One bucket was for legislative consideration, and the other bucket was directed at the OHA. In terms of the first one for legislative consideration, providing that direction to the OAC and the OHA around collecting sufficient data to assess the effectiveness of Measure 110, and really trying to identify what the public and what policymakers are expecting to use as measures for assessing that effectiveness. The second one relates to updating statutes to eliminating this overlap and waste in hotlines. Prior to Measure 110, there was already a substance use disorder hotline operated by OHA. With Measure 110, there was a requirement to have a Measure 110 specific hotline. It costs just under $1 million. And as we highlighted in the report, it only had 119 calls during the 15-month period, or over $7,000 per call as a cost. And of those calls, only 25 or so were referred actually to services. And now, because of statutory requirement, there's also a requirement that burns establish hotlines. So we've got a prior OHA hotline, a new Measure 110 hotline, and then now new burn hotlines. And it's just an opportunity to eliminate some duplication and waste in the system and redirect some funds to some higher returns on investment. The third one is providing that clear direction to OHA around providing proactive support, assistance, and training to the OAC. From our perspective, when we looked at the enabling statutes for the Oregon Health Authority, we really saw they were charged with running the whole physical, behavioral, and mental health system, including addiction treatment. And the analogy I like to use is they're the conductor, and then with Measure 110, they got a new first violin. You, as the OAC, are that first violin. You actually play the instrument, you make the decisions, but that doesn't mean you don't get some support and some direction and assistance from the conductor as part of this larger integrated system. And then lastly, staggering the OAC appointment terms. We're aware that all of you will lose your membership on the same date, and that would be a critical loss of institutional knowledge. And that needs to be figured out where there's some staggering of appointment terms. terms of recommendations for OHA's consideration, we encourage developing those meaningful performance measures, that data collection effort we've already talked about, as well as documenting a plan for how Measure 110 integrates into their existing system. This really, how is Measure 110 fitting into OHA's strategic plan and the key resources and initiatives tied to that. The next two relate to documenting expectations for both OHA support staff and OAC members, and then providing some training to both staff and members on those requirements. We already talked a little bit about improving the grant evaluation process. Based on my understanding of some meetings I've listened to, you guys are well aware of the need to improve that process and streamline it, but we made that recommendation as well. And since OHA was our auditee for this audit, we encourage them to recommend to the OAC those collaboration opportunities in terms of Department of Corrections, Housing and Community Services, and Interagency Council on Homelessness, and the Opioid Settlement Funds. And to highlight the example of opportunities with Department of Corrections, we've got over 12,000 adults in custody right now, and over 7,700 have a significant substance use disorder, but only a few hundred are gaining access to intensive treatment. As part of the audit, I went to Coffee Creek Correctional Facility, which is the women's facility up in Wilsonville, and saw the alternative incarceration program. And this is a really impactful program that helps adults in custody transition back to the community, and it provides them a 6-month intensive residential substance use disorder treatment program. And the cost of it is relatively inexpensive at about $7,800 per adult. And when you compare that to some of the other expenditures, like the cost of the hotline, you can really see the potential return on investment if some of these funds were reallocated. And if you also go back to Measure 110, and some of its intent was writing the war on drugs and some of the harms that were done, and a number of individuals, as we highlight in the audit, people of color in particular, are disproportionately impacted by the correctional system. There are more adults in custody that are people in color than the demographics of our state suggests. And some of righting the wrongs, I think, is helping provide them services. Although none of them were in prison for possession alone, a lot of them have been have ended up in custody as a result of their addiction. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you have.
Ron?
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks for that presentation. The I'm just wondering if you were able to, have you received did you see the updated Access to Care grant presentation that happened today?
So I had some conflicts the last hour. I have not seen it, but Casey Kopcha, our principal auditor on this, was present for that, and I look forward to watching it in the future when I have a chance.
More than 42,000 people have been served with Access to Care funding. There's a very strong presentation that shows that the providers reported on the services they were delivering. It's broken down very clearly and succinctly and in a wonderful format. The OHA staff did a wonderful job. But I'm wondering, in terms of going forward, in terms of the updating information regarding the Access to Care grants, is there a plan on the part of your office to update that information or provide information to the public or the legislature regarding the services that were delivered and the reporting that was done?
Excellent question, Ron. We're having some discussions internally. One of the things we'll need to do is look at the information in detail, but certainly it's something we're considering,
Okay,
either in
great.
future audits or issuing some other correction or whatnot, whatever.
And just to follow up, you mentioned Burn Behavioral Health Resource Network reporting. So my understanding is that there are templates and reports that meet the standard of the Secretary of State's audit in terms of reporting. I just want to confirm that, or get your response to that?
Yeah, so Ron, last spring, I gave some pretty detailed feedback to the Oregon Health Authority staff around some data collection. So, we still have some concerns about the templates, but we have seen the templates and, they are collecting some information. Our concerns largely go to, are they collecting enough or the right information to really assess the effectiveness?
Right. I just don't want to, kind of projecting into the future. I don't want to be in a position where we're having this conversation about burn reporting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so I I had a question just in terms of, I'm sure you're maybe aware, just in case you're not, that the press just love to report on your audit and really just dunk on Measure 110. So I'm wondering if there's going to be anything else coming out from the Secretary of State's office around maybe some misunderstandings or clarifications. I don't know if that's an option. I don't know how a lot of these offices work, to be honest.
Yep. As I mentioned to Ron, that's something we're discussing. There's various opportunities we have there, but we haven't made any final decisions. Part of it, one of the options that's on the table is we could wrap that issue up into our subsequent audit, which is due out in December of this year. We also have the ability to do interim reporting. And another option that we're discussing too is adding a footnote to our report or some kind of text box relating to that sentence. Those two particular sentences in the report where we didn't have the information, but now it's available, making people aware that it's become available.
Okay, and then I had so one thing that I noticed in the audit, there was a little bit of stigmatizing language in there, but also there was a statement that not every burn had housing, which is not accurate. What did end up happening is that every burn did not have a spectrum of housing, but I believe the audit said there's not housing in every burn. And so as a council member, I know that that's not accurate, and I'm curious as to whether or not there might be some way for the council to have some sort of a discussion with your office or somebody, just in terms of making sure that what's going out is correct and that someone didn't misunderstand something, which is totally possible. This is a huge mess and we're starting an entirely new system, but I know that through OHA, it's been said that the council is really, it's sort of in charge and really trying to lead and create a new system. And so is there a place somewhere for the council to be able to have input or just have an open discussion before these things go out to the press? Because what I've seen in the past is then it just gets re-reported and re-reported, even if it's wrong. And folks don't always necessarily hear if there's an edit or a retraction. And so I'm just thinking about going forward, knowing that there are additional audits that will be happening and published, if there's a space somewhere for the council to have some input or just open discussion before this goes, the next report would go out.
Sure. Let me tackle two issues. First, the housing one. I believe, and please point me to the language that you're concerned about, but we had heard that concern. I went back and looked in the report. I believe that section of the report says at least one of these services need to be captured in all the burns. And then it goes through a list of the services, housing being one of the components. I don't think at any point we state that housing is not in every burn. And I think the evidence we use to support that is the requirements under Senate Bill 755. So we were just restating the statutes kind of in plain English. But I'm happy to look at that further. If it is an error that we had by audit standards, we are required to post a new audit and explain the information that was in error. And then the second issue In terms of kind of the audit process, what we do is we engage with an auditee. For the initial Measure 110 audit, we considered engaging with OAC as an auditee where you'd be more formally engaged in the process. But you have to remember, we kicked this off in January of last year. It became really apparent to us in conversations with OAC members that you were struggling just to meet your existing workload. And we didn't want to layer on additional burdens of an audit and some of those procedural things. So we chose to just focus our engagement with OHA. Going forward on the next two audits, we by all means welcome OAC as an auditee, and that would engage you at more points of the conversation in terms of finding development, feedback on the report. But at any time, our office is open to feedback, and you can reach out at any time, whether you're an auditee or not.
Ron?
All right, thank you very much for that response. I appreciate it. It was a great question, Blue. I just wanted to kind of restate or just kind of recast this in terms of the legislative session. Like I'm sure you know, we're in these meetings with the Measure 110 work group that'll meet tomorrow. We updated the access to care information. That information is going to be made public. My understanding that the OHA Comms is working to get that information out to the community. However, there was quite a bit of kind of consternation and hand-wringing in the legislature regarding the audit report and the no data. And so I'm just wondering going forward, particularly with, let's say tomorrow in the work group, you're going to be doing a presentation to that work group. And this conversation is going to take up a majority of the conversation. And I just want to make sure, or my hope is that this access to care updated information becomes part of the narrative that the Secretary of State is putting forward.
Yeah, certainly tomorrow, Ron, when I talk about that, I will flag that particular line and how that was based on that point in time where there was no information available. And I don't know if I'll be able to review all the access to care stuff before that meeting. It is 8 a.m. tomorrow, and got some meetings after this as well. But I do plan on reviewing it as soon as possible and incorporating it into our work.
Okay, and not to relitigate this, because I think we should be celebrating the access to care results, but I just do want to point out that January of 2022, the council received access to care grant report from OHA that had 16,000 people had received services. So data had been collected and was being reported to the council at that point. It may have just been a timing issue with how the audit interacted with the staff. But we had received in January of 2022 a full report of the first 6 months where over 16,000 people had received services. I just wanted to just flag that was the case as far back as January.
I appreciate that, Ron. And again, you know, back when we asked OHA staff, we were told there is no information, but sometimes that happens with audits. You know, there's a lot of staff at OHA. There's a lot of players. Sometimes we ask a question of one individual, and that doesn't necessarily find the right person that knows that information, kind of as Margie was talking about.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments around that Secretary of State audit from the council?
And I do need to jump to a 3 o'clock. I can potentially stay a few minutes though.
Caroline, and then I guess if you can just let Ian, if you have to jump off whenever you have to. Go ahead, Caroline.
So I apologize. I was in a community meeting, so I came in late, and I'm trying to read this whole thing. It's not easy. But is there anywhere in the introduction that says exactly who participated in the audit? Is there anything that says that in here?
Yeah, I mean, there's various points. If you look at that title page, for example, I think the very top of it says Oregon Health Authority, and then it talks about the audit title itself. So that kind of indicates who we engaged with. And then there's other parts where we talk about the players. And then at the end, there's a part in the objective scope and methodology that details all of the steps we did to perform the audit. And so that would provide additional detail as well.
I guess I'm just kind of curious as to why isn't it right in the front and saying, these are the people who, we don't have to have our names on there, but these are the people who were interviewed. And so.
Oh, I see.
You see what I mean? Because I didn't see that in here.
Yeah.
So if I were someone who read this, it's kind of like, well, where in the world did they get this from? I mean, who did they interview? It's not clear who was interviewed. Did they interview? I mean, I know they interviewed us because I know I was interviewed, but beyond me, and I remember us talking about that we're going to get interviewed, but beyond that, did they interview the OHA staff? I mean, was it just the health systems staff, or was it other people within OHA? I mean, so I just want to know where all the feedback came from. And for me, because I did kind of try to read this like 2-3 times, it is long. But I think we have to understand that this is, like you said, this is almost a year old already. And we do need a base. I mean, because hopefully our next audit is going to look really fantastic in comparison. I mean, isn't that what we want? We want to say, hey, you know, this was kind of like, we were doing all these things all at once. We were trying to read all the grants. We were trying to understand that, you know, the evaluation form, we were meeting every week. I mean, I don't know, but it was kind of like I was going to sleep thinking measure 110, waking up 110, everything was 110. And that was overwhelming in addition to us doing our other jobs. And I'm really glad we went every other week now, or every second or fourth week. But I'm just saying, I want people to know who was involved with that audit in the front. So then people can know who.
Excellent, Claire. And I'll wrap this up real quick and then I got to jump. But everybody we audited or talked to as part of the audit, that's a public record. If you want a full list of our interviewees, we'd be happy to share that with you. Again, in the objective scope and methodology, we detail the steps we did to perform the audit. That's just kind of the audit standard way of where we place it and where most audit shops put that information. We don't typically name all the names of individuals because I think for this audit, we probably spoke with 50 different individuals. But thank you very much for your time. I'd be happy to come back to the council at any time and answer more questions you have. But unfortunately, I do have a meeting.
In response to you, I know you need to go, but I think I'm looking at categories. I don't need names. You know, you said 50. Who are the
categories? So the categories are detailed in the objective scope and methodology section of the report.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so thank you all for that. And I've got so many windows open. Next up, we do have just a discussion around a press release. And I'm not sure that I have a name on who's leading that discussion. So hopefully, whoever it is will jump in. I don't think it's me.
Is it Tim?
Yeah, I think the plan today is to send out a press release on these reporting numbers. I've incorporated all the changes, looking for leadership approval, and hope to send that out this afternoon.
Thanks, Tim.
And I just want to, sorry, Jessica, I just want to note that we don't have quorum here. So collectively, the council can't agree on a press statement to put out today, but you could discuss kind of broadly what you might want to say and then bring that for a vote next week when we do have quorum.
Yeah, maybe if we could just sort of like have somebody from OHA track like bullet points of general ideas or concepts that could then be brought to the next meeting when we do have quorum. I think
Wait, did I hear that? Wait, I heard two different things.
Okay. Go ahead, Ron.
So I heard Tim say he was get a press release out today with access to care information. That's great. And then
Ron, if I could clarify that. I'm sorry if I wasn't more precise. So what we are reporting today will be not only the access to care numbers, but also the preliminary reporting for the burns.
Great.
And in the process of pulling that together, we are quoting Blue and Lakeisha,
Great.
and they've approved their quotes.
Great.
So we should be good to go once I get final leadership sign off,
Okay.
which I think might have happened in the last few minutes. So that's where we are. And I apologize if I was more specific earlier.
Okay. One thing I
think-
wanted to, follow up. Ian issued an apology for confusion. Could that be used as a quote?
Not without Ian's permission. I think we might have some confusion as well as to what OHA normally reports as OHA reporting are press releases or communication versus what do we need the OAC to approve before it is reported. And so I think that's maybe where we are, because if we need OAC, the council to approve it, you don't have quorum to do that, and that would hold up.
Yeah, we don't need to, I don't think we need council to approve an OHA press release.
If it's our regular reporting on just what we do with all of our programs, Allison was on there, she'll tell me. I was making the assumption we could do our regular thing, and it's OHA saying it, not necessarily the council saying.
Great.
Allison, where are you? Am I wrong?
So Allison had to jump off, and we knew she was going to have to jump off at 3 o'clock. And so kind of, I think what Blue was alluding to here and what everyone's kind of alluding to here is that OHA is putting out a press release, right? The council, before you learned about this press release, had wanted to put out your own statement, right? And so we left this last half hour, if you all wanted to come up with a statement that you could then, that would be put out by the council, not by OHA, but by the council, that you could then vote on next week. So if you wanted to use this time for brainstorming is really what this was meant to do. But I think some of you might be appeased by we're happy to hear that we're actually putting out a press release. And so maybe that isn't as necessary, completely up to you.
So unless we will check with DOJ first, but unless we're told we're operating incorrectly without, we're in violation of how we work at the council, we'll do our normal press release, but we'll send you an email or something that says we're going forward with this, and you'll get to see what it is. Or we're not going to put anything out until the council decides they need to vote on something. So I'll leave that.
No, I don't think the council needs to vote on what OHA is putting out.
I'm just going to confirm it with DOJ, with your DOJ to make sure that we are.
The second. Thank you. What I was going to suggest in terms of the idea of the council engaging in some wordsmithing right now in a letter doesn't seem like a good use of the council's time. And so I would recommend maybe a subgroup of the council working with the tri-chairs to put some language together that could come together before that we could consider next week as a separate letter from the council regarding them.
I think that sounds great, Ron. I know that we had a media subcommittee that had to stop meeting. And so there are definitely some folks who, I don't know that they're in this meeting right now, but that had wanted to engage in that way. And I think what I was hoping for, and I can't speak for other council members, is that it's great, like, it's great that OHA is putting out a press release. I think the council may want to have their own voice as well at a later date that is separate from OHA's press release. And I just found out earlier this afternoon that the I think it's, so the OHA Director James Schroeder did release a statement in response to the audit as well, which I was not aware of. So I put that link in the chat. I don't know if that has gone out to the full council, but that has also happened. And so there is another response to the audit.
Thanks for providing that. I'm sorry, I'm doing too much.
No worries. Is anybody else on the council? Oh, Zeb, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I want to be on that subcommittee if possible, to help with that statement. I just, it's really concerning to me that there's misinformation out there. And I hate to think that we'd have to wait till November to get clarification or something from the inaccurate reporting that's been done. So a lot of lives been saved through this because of this process that we've been a part of. So anyway, I just want to say thank you guys.
Dharma.
I think I just want to add to Zeb's point too, just on the record, that the cost of the misinformation is people's lives as well, right? Like, we're saving a lot of people's lives, but the cost of the misinformation, especially by negligence of excluding information or maybe releasing information hastily, will cause people's lives to be lost, because that's the real cost of the war on drugs. And so I just think it's really important that we do make a separate statement so that we can clarify things. But I also think that we need time to formulate that, because I think rushing out statements can also get us in that same kind of position where we're not prepared. Yeah, so I just would erring on the side of caution, but also just kind of amplifying this important notion that people's lives will be cost by this by misinformation.
Jessica?
Yeah, so I'm hearing that you all want to start a subcommittee. I just want to acknowledge that there are some things that we have to do on our end in order to make that happen. I am not Allison, but I can hear Allison right now talking about notices and public meetings and all of that good stuff. So let's work on our end on the OHA side to get the logistics worked out for you. We will likely be sending an email out with a couple of different times that are available for that. And we can work that out moving forward. But I just wanted to acknowledge that we're hearing you. We will get something scheduled. It is going to be dependent on a couple of things. We have to live stream. It has to be a public meeting. We have to be able to get the other parts of the setup. Channeling my best inner Allison on that one.
Thank you, Jessica. I just want to, Dharma, I think your hand is still, okay, never mind. So Ron, go ahead.
No, I was just going to thank everybody for taking on this extra meeting. I want to thank the staff for putting it together. I want to thank the Secretary of State's office for coming in and having the media people here. This was, I think, was a great use of our time and well coordinated and well timed and well organized. Thank you very much.
No, I don't have anything left to say. Yeah, so thank you, Ron. You said it really well. Just want to, oh, Carolyn, I see your hand up, so go ahead.
I just want to remind folks that I am in tribal council all of next week in the afternoon. I will not be at the meeting. So I just want to make sure. So if you really need a quorum, I might be able to step out of the meeting, but it's kind of hard when I'm in tribal council. So just a reminder.
Thank you for that reminder. That's super helpful. All right, just want to give a second, see if anybody had any additional comments. And I also just want to really thank OHA staff, because I don't think for one second that some of the information that came out was intentional, and y'all have not been defensive, and have really been open to having this conversation. So I also just really appreciate that. I do recognize that Measure 110 is probably a lot more work than most of the council members thought it would be, and probably a lot of OHA staff thought it would be. And so I know that a lot of us have full plates. And I just appreciate all of the OHA staff being here and engaging with us in a conversation. Ron, I see your hand.
Yeah, just the one last thing, just to flag for people, tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the House Revenue Committee, they're taking up a bill, House Bill 2089, which seeks to transfer funds from the marijuana account, which would reduce Measure 110 funds by an estimated $50 million. If you'd like, I can send you all some materials that my organization has put together with a link to be able to testify, submit testimony to oppose this Senate Bill House Bill 2089. I can send information to Jessica distribute to you all. That's my final comment.
Is that something that can happen, Jessica? I get real blurry on some of these things. I think maybe we can just tell folks that they can support or oppose it and that they can make that decision, and then would that be appropriate?
So I am not going to channel my best inner Alice here, and I'm going to tell you I will get back to you as soon as I talk to DOJ on that.
I would say that OHA it would be better if you all want to send each other something, because OHA staff cannot make recommendations.
Right. So, right. My concern is the serial communications. I'm trying to avoid the serial communications bar problem. But my understanding, if a council member wants to distribute something that doesn't violate the serial communications law, I could send it to OHA, and then they can send it to the council, and that doesn't violate the.
We'll check with Allison, and if so, we'll make it happen. So
Okay.
Jessica's got it.
Yeah.
If not, we'll send you a note and say, talk to each other.
Right. If not, I'm going to send it to the council.
Yeah, or maybe just with neutrality around it, in terms of this is what the bill is, and you can make your own decisions on how you feel about it. Maybe that might be
yes.
a
I
better
won't specifically tell people to oppose House Bills 2089.
But if they want to. No, okay.
But I will send information if you choose to do it.
Yeah, okay. So thank you everybody for your time today and for coming to this meeting that was called kind of last minute. I appreciate it and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.